Greetings, friends. You are watching the Ruslan Belov channel. Today we will take a detailed look at the situation in Ukraine as of January 2nd, 2026. Over the past day, a truly large number of significant and fundamentally important events have taken place, so I suggest that we move directly to analyzing the situation without unnecessary introductions. Already now, based exclusively on the information that reached us on the evening of December 31st, as well as throughout January 1st and January 2, it becomes absolutely clear that there is no talk whatsoever of stopping the conflict on the territory of Ukraine. Hostilities are ongoing and will continue. At the same time, it is becoming increasingly evident that 2026 may very well become a turning point and, in many respects, a decisive year. Beginning on January 1st, the Ukrainian side has been carrying out large-scale strikes against the territory of the Russian Federation, employing hundreds of unmanned aerial vehicles. We were able to observe a corresponding picture already yesterday. The published materials show approximate routes taken by Ukrainian drones that were flying deep into Russian territory. In addition, the day before, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation reported that during the period from 16 May to 23, Russian air defense systems destroyed 201 Ukrainian drones. This fact clearly demonstrates that Ukraine conducted extremely intensive drone launches precisely during this time window. Moreover, the strikes were not limited to central regions of Russia, or, in particular, the direction toward Moscow, the capital of the Russian Federation. A significant number of attacks were also carried out against southern regions and southern directions. In particular, information is emerging regarding the situation around the Yelsk oil refinery. Pro-Ukrainian sources are publishing relevant video footage claiming that the facility was damaged as a result of the strikes. Separately, it is necessary to mention the tragic events that occurred in the area of the settlement of Korli, on the territory of a resort village and wellness complex. Reports indicate that during the night of January 1st, 3 drones struck this area, resulting in numerous casualties, including among the civilian population. The Russian side, in turn, is responding with retaliatory strikes. However, it must be emphasized that these strikes are not the large-scale actions that virtually all sources have been discussing over the past several days, without exception. Pro-Ukrainian resources published a corresponding map as early as January 1st, 2026. It shows approximate flight routes of Russian drones over the northern and southern parts of Ukraine. The data presented indicate that the strikes, at least in this particular case, were carried out against regions through which key Ukrainian logistics routes pass. First and foremost, this concerns the Odesa region, as well as the northwestern part of the country. Thus, it can be assumed that the primary target of these strikes was logistical infrastructure. However, I repeat once again, these are still not the strikes that are currently being anticipated and actively discussed. Apparently, we are talking about future actions by the Russian Federation, as a response to attacks on the residence of the President of Russia, and most likely as a retaliatory measure for strikes carried out in the southern part of Kherson region, which resulted in civilian casualties. Today, extremely important footage has also emerged from Moscow. In fact, this footage essentially answers the question of why the Russian side has so far refrained from delivering a large-scale retaliatory strike. Judging by everything, this response will be extremely powerful and serious in its consequences. Naturally, the United States of America will conduct its own analysis of what has happened. In the near future, Washington will most likely voice an official position. Most likely, it will be formulated as follows. The United States does not rule out that the Ukrainian side, or drones equipped with specific controllers and control systems, were indeed flying toward the residence of the President of the Russian Federation. For the Russian side, even such wording would be more than sufficient to initiate the very process we are discussing now. At present, it appears that evidence is being collected and a certain justification framework is being prepared, possibly even from a legal standpoint. And after that, strikes will most likely be carried out. Moreover, such a strike could occur in the very near future. Ukrainian sources are already spreading information claiming that Russia is allegedly preparing some kind of provocation. Judging by everything, this can be interpreted as an attempt to prepare Ukrainian public opinion in advance for a possible large-scale strike. In addition, very interesting information emerged from Kiev today. It has become definitively known that Andriy Yermak has been fully removed from his position. Formally, he left the post quite some time ago, but until now his position had remained vacant. Today, however, information has appeared indicating that the head of Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Service, Kirilo Budanov, may take over this role. According to available data, he has been officially offered the position of head of the office of the President of Ukraine. This decision is of critical importance, and the issue here is not only that a representative of military intelligence is being appointed to such a high civilian post. First and foremost, this represents a serious blow to the political prospects of former Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Valery Zaluzhny, who, as is well known, also sees himself as a potential future president of Ukraine. Budanov's appointment may indicate that Volodymyr Zelensky has reached certain agreements with him. Moreover, it cannot be ruled out that this marks the beginning of a covert process of preparing a successor in case events develop according to the most negative scenario. In any case, Budanov, judging by everything, is being considered as a possible successor to Zelensky, even if the situation develops in a relatively favorable manner for the current president. This is the current political configuration. Now let us move directly to the line of contact and take a detailed look at what has been happening on the front lines during the first days of 2026. Let us begin with the Zaparijia direction. Here, the Russian army is conducting active offensive operations simultaneously across several sectors. The western Zaparijia, central Zaparijia, and eastern Zaparijia directions. At the moment, the main combat engagements are unfolding north of Stepnohursk. The combat map in this sector has undergone noticeable changes. This is how the situation looked as of December 29th, and this is how the map has been adjusted over the past several days. As can be seen, the so-called grey zone is primarily being expanded. At present, there are no confirmed geolocations or video materials available in open sources that would unequivocally document further northward advances by Russian units. Nevertheless, this topic is being actively discussed and remains in the spotlight. If we turn to the central Zaparijia direction, changes have also been recorded on the maps. Today, pro-Ukrainian cartographic resources published a brief analytical note stating that Russian units had been observed on the territory of the settlement of Bilohirya. Based on this information, as well as an analysis of available data, including video materials that, however, have not yet appeared in open sources, a map adjustment was made. For our part, we also updated the map in this sector by adding an additional grey zone. This indicates that the Russian army is advancing actively and apparently preparing for further actions in the Orikhiv sector. As for the eastern Zaparijia sector, the changes on the map here are the most pronounced. Comparing the situation at the end of 2025 with the data received by the evening of January 2nd, it becomes clear that Russian units managed to significantly improve their positions west of the city of Huliaipol and effectively approach the settlement of Zalisnikni at close range. This settlement is located immediately beyond Huliaipol along the T0814 highway. Today, the first objective control footage appeared online, and it is quite recent, as evidenced by the visible snow cover. These images show FAB aerial bomb strikes on positions of the armed forces of Ukraine in the area of Zalisnikni. All of this indicates that the assault on this settlement has effectively already begun. If we look at the northern and northeastern directions along the Haicha River, virtually no new information has emerged from this sector over the past several days. Only isolated video materials have been published, showing Russian airstrikes against AFU positions in the areas of the settlements of Boykov and Rozdvianka. It appears that in these sectors, the Ukrainian side is currently concentrating certain forces and reserves in preparation for counterattacks in the area of Ternuvate. At the same time, the Boykov area even features archival footage recorded before snowfall. In contrast, the materials from the Rozdvianka area look much more recent. A significant layer of snow is clearly visible there. Thus, combat operations for Ternuvate are ongoing, but over the past 3 days, no fundamentally new or significant information has emerged from this direction. We now move on to the situation on the Pokrovsk sector of the line of contact. At present, information indicates that the main combat engagements are concentrated in the area of the settlement of Rodinsk. The Ukrainian side, or rather certain Ukrainian military analysts, claimed that some units of the armed forces of Ukraine managed to break through to the southern outskirts of Rodinsk, where they regrouped and partially entrenched themselves. Currently, the Ukrainian side is attempting to hold its positions within this settlement in order to prevent further Russian advances to the northwest, toward the city of Zaparijia. The fighting is intense and fierce. In effect, a battle is underway for the southern part of Rodinsk, where Ukrainian formations are trying to maintain their foothold. In the near future, the operational situation in this sector should become clearer. At the same time, it is important to recall that according to the latest adjustments and data received from pro-Russian experts between December 29 and 31, Russian units had earlier entered the settlements of Belitska and Novodonbass. At present, the distance from the forward positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation to the city of Zaparijia may be around 4 kilometers, which in military terms is already a minimal and insignificant distance. Next, we move to the situation around the settlement of Costantinovka, which is currently acquiring the status of a key and strategically important city. According to information coming from Russian sources, as well as partially from pro-Ukrainian resources, the settlements of Pokrovsk and Mirnohrad have come under the control of Russian units, possibly not entirely, but a significant portion of them is already under Russian control. Under these conditions, the primary task now is to level the front line from the Zaparijia direction through Pokrovsk and Mirnohrad toward the city of Siversk. The only serious obstacle to this alignment is Costantinovka itself. For this reason, the main attention of the command of the armed forces of the Russian Federation is currently focused here. Combat operations have already begun in the Costantinovka area. Weather conditions may not yet be fully conducive to large-scale offensive actions. However, a number of sources report that over the past several days, fairly favorable weather has set in for active operations by FPV drone operators. As a result, Russian units are advancing in this sector, although the assault has not yet developed deep into Kostiantinovka's urban area, as one might initially assume. At present, the Russian army is also focused on the task of leveling the front line. Special attention is being paid to the H20 and H32 highways. In practice, the Russian side is concentrating maximum effort on stabilizing and aligning the front line along the conditional red line visible on operational maps. Aligning the line of contact along this line will allow the Russian side to integrate the logistics of the Pokrovsk-Mirnohrad agglomeration with the main territory via Artemovsk, Toretsk, and Kostiantinovka. At present, this transport artery is of key importance, and intense fighting is underway precisely for control over it. These are the territories located north of the Klebenbeek Reservoir. Several important materials have been published from this sector of the front. In particular, updated maps have been released showing how the front line is being adjusted. It can be observed that the Russian army actively advanced on western salients. This information is also confirmed by data from various neutral cartographic services. These are precisely the changes currently being recorded on operational schemes. In addition, a short video was published from the area of the settlement of Oleksandro Kalinove. The footage shows several Russian assault troops occupying a strongpoint, after which strikes are delivered against this fortified position by the armed forces of Ukraine. Based on this video material, the corresponding section was adjusted on the map. Another video was also published from the area of Stupochki. A large strongpoint is visible there as well. Snow cover can be clearly seen, indicating winter conditions. Judging by these signs, the footage is quite recent. The video also captures an FPV drone strike on Russian army positions. Based on these materials, additional map corrections were made. After the front line is fully aligned along the H32 and H20 highways, and once these roads are positioned behind Russian assault units, the final phase of the battle for Kostiantinovka will most likely begin. As for the Sloviansk sector of the front, no significant changes have been recorded there at this time. The Russian army continues to methodically soften the defenses of the armed forces of Ukraine around the perimeter of the settlements of Kolodiazne, Kriva Luka, and Rai Oleksandrivka in order to create conditions for further advancement. On the Lyman direction, virtually no significant changes have been recorded over the past day either. Regarding the Kupansk sector of the front, pro-Ukrainian, neutral and pro-Western cartographic resources are increasingly claiming that the fighting for the city of Kupiansk is allegedly approaching its logical conclusion. At present, adjustments to the front line are being recorded in the northeastern part of Kupiansk, based on video footage, publications, and various materials released by neutral cartographic services. For our part, we are currently only expanding the grey zone and observing that the Ukrainian side is apparently continuing its counter-offensive on the Kupiansk direction. At the same time, some pro-Ukrainian sources claim that the battle for Kupiansk may be concluded in favor of the armed forces of Ukraine in the near future. Meanwhile, only one video has been published by the Russian side from the central part of Kupiansk. The footage shows Russian soldiers launching fireworks in the city center during the New Year period, thereby confirming control over this area. Nevertheless, combat operations here continue. The Ukrainian side shows no intention of halting resistance, and additional forces and reserves are being redeployed to this sector. Next, we move on to the Sumy direction. Here, the pace of changes in the operational situation and map adjustments continues to intensify. I would remind you that this is primarily due to the fact that a significant number of Ukrainian units were redeployed from this sector to the Kupiansk, Pokrovsk, and Mirnohrad fronts. As a result, the Russian army is conducting active offensive operations in this direction, and advances are being recorded along much of the border between Sumy region, Kursk region, and Belgorod region. Today, advances are noted in the area of the settlement of Andriivka, as well as toward Malokorchakivka. This is how the map has been adjusted over the past day, at the junction of the end of 2025 and the beginning of 2026. This is how the Russian army's offensive is developing. At present, according to some sources, the distance from forward positions to the settlement of Malokorchakivka is less than 1.5 kilometers. In addition, from the settlement of Yunakivka toward the settlement of Kropivnishchina, the distance is also estimated at around 2 kilometers. This means that the Russian army has come right up to the next defensive line. Active combat operations may begin here in the very near future. Establishing control over these territories will allow Russian units to enter the Sumy forest area and subsequently advance more safely through the forest toward the city of Sumy itself. Today, information has also emerged about the advance of Russian units in the area of Miropilia. According to pro-Russian and neutral cartographic services, a large forested area in this region has come under Russian control. That is all for today, dear friends. Thank you for your attention. Subscribe to the channel, support the video with likes, and all the best to you.